Maybe you are familiar with dopamine, and perhaps you have watched some videos now on how doing a dopamine fast can be something super powerful. Well, today I'm going to share something interesting that I do myself and that I call intermittent dopamine fasting. Scandinavian Bob here, hi. This channel is all about reducing anxiety and discovering interesting self-improvement tools in order to build a stronger self. So click on the little bell icon and let's get going. Okay, so let's talk about something that I personally call intermittent dopamine fasting. Most of you have probably heard about intermittent fasting by now, which is an eating pattern where you, instead of fasting for many days straight, you fast for a part of the day, and then you have a short eating window where you eat all of your food for the day. Now there are many variations of this, but one variation is fasting for 16 hours, followed by an 8-hour window where you are allowed to eat. Now, in a similar way, I call it intermittent dopamine fasting, when I take a short time out from all high stimulating activities, and I do this on a daily basis. Let me first explain how I do it, and after that we are going to talk about the benefits and why I do it. Most nights at 7 p.m. I go Operation Blackout. This means that I take the SIM card out of my phone and I put it in a time lock safe that I have. That safe will remain locked until next morning when it's set to open at 4:30. And I have set the safe in a way that it will lock again in just 30 minutes. So this means if I want my phone back, I better make damn sure to get my ass out of bed and start the day. So now you say, okay, great. But what's the point with all of this trouble? Well, good question. You see, my phone is my internet hotspot. And when I take the SIM card out, it means that I kill the internet connection in my house, and I can no longer do aimless browsing on social media the hours leading up to bedtime. But it's not only social media. You see, by unplugging from internet 3 to 4 hours every night before bedtime, I get a small dopamine detox. Why? Well, internet and your smartphone is very stimulating for your brain's reward system. All the social media platforms are built in a way that every like and notification you get give you a small dopamine hit. And aimless browsing on the internet, where you, for example, keep following what's suggested to you, does the same thing. The problem is that too much dopamine release from high stimulating activities causes a numb reward center and downregulated dopamine receptors over time. Now, don't get scared, it's not that big of a deal like, oh my god, I have to stop using the internet now. No, listen, just know that we have a lot of those stimulating things going on in our lives nowadays, and all of them add up. So yes, the reward center can suffer in the long run. Things like high stimulating video games, online adult sites, Facebook, Snapchat, Netflix, dating sites, well, they all add up, and this is why it's so good to unplug from that from time to time. Let me ask you this. As you go about your day, how often do you just spend time with yourself and your thoughts? I would guess it doesn't happen very often at all. In fact, I'd be willing to bet that as soon as you have a moment of extra time on your hands, like if you're waiting in line for 2 minutes, you instantly take out your smartphone to distract yourself. Waiting for a friend? Smartphone. Waiting for the cab? Smartphone. Heck, even when stopping at a red light, you need to check your phone. Now, I'm not saying that this is bad every single time you do this. However, if you always distract yourself, escaping into dopamine-driven activities, and you never spend time with yourself and your thoughts, then it's a problem. For example, I know many of you are doing NoFap. Well, did you know that most relapses, and this is true for any addiction, happens because you are afraid of discomfort? You are unable to just spend time with yourself and listen to your thoughts, so you escape. This is called escapism, and that's what most often gets us into addiction-related stuff. Now, here's the deal though. You can't escape yourself forever. And if you are afraid of discomfort, and if you haven't learned how to spend time with yourself, then you will never get very far on your NoFap journey before relapsing. And this is true for everything and not just NoFap. It is because you will try to escape as soon as discomfort sets in. God damn it, and you have to start over again. So how about not so much of that, eh? Okay, back to the dopamine fast and the benefits. Operation Blackout forces you to become more mindful because without internet you are not aimlessly drifting, surfing from one video to another. You are forced to slow down and let your thoughts catch up with you and probably face some form of discomfort, perhaps in form of some boredom or negative emotions from listening to your anxious thoughts. But listen, if you want to become a grounded man with self-control who does not relapse all the time, then you have to be able to do this. You have to be able to spend time with yourself without running away and escaping. You should also know that if you are or have been addicted to fapping and adult entertainment, then doing intermittent dopamine fasting will help you to regrow your dopamine receptors. So doing it might actually speed up your recovery. And of course, if you take a time out from high stimulating activities, the hours leading up to bedtime, your brain will calm down and you will sleep so much better. Now some of you are probably thinking that Operation Blackout means that you have to sit and meditate for 3 hours every night. No. It's not about not getting any dopamine at all. Don't get a dopamine phobia here, because we need dopamine. Heck, even drinking a glass of water increases your dopamine slightly. The point is to spend a few hours doing things in a mindful way, being aware of yourself and shutting down the most stimulating stuff, the internet. Remember that I told you that I take my SIM card out and just lock that into the safe, and I leave the phone outside. The reason for this is that I just want to shut down the internet. You see, I still use my phone, for example, for listening to a podcast that I downloaded to the phone earlier. But the difference is now I really listen to the damn podcast mindfully without getting distracted or having to check something on the internet several times during the podcast. And because I listen to some educational stuff, it's now a healthy activity for the brain. Mindfulness is the key here. And here are some other activities I do during Operation Blackout. I make dinner and sit down and I eat in a mindful way without distractions. I practice and try to become a better trumpet player, all while I spend time with my thoughts. I make a to-do list for tomorrow, and again, I'm really in touch with my thoughts here, and that also helps with coming up with smart strategies to get to my goals. I journal. This again is very mindful because now you are even writing down your thoughts on paper. So you are indeed spending time with yourself when journaling. And sometimes I write down ideas and take notes from the podcast I listen to, again planning and using my thoughts mindfully. And of course I read books, real physical books. All those activities is done mindfully, and it's the very opposite of mindless browsing before bed. And hey, if you are doing NoFap, then doing Operation Blackout 4 hours every night will of course prevent you from relapsing to adult entertainment, especially if you have a time lock safe. Now, of course, you can do this without a time lock safe. You certainly don't need one. But personally, I find it feels so good because I don't have to spend 1 ounce of energy on willpower trying to resist turning the internet back on. Once the SIM card is in the safe and it's locked, my brain fully accepts that. It's like, okay, now there is no internet until 4:30 next morning. I can leave a link to the time lock safe I use under this video if you are interested, so you can check the price. I love the safe because it makes things so easy, but again, you certainly don't need one in order to start doing the dopamine detox. Just don't use internet a few hours before bedtime. Alright, that's it for today. Remember, this is just one way of doing a dopamine fast, and you do it on and off on a daily basis, hence the name Intermittent Dopamine Detox. I have also made a video about doing it a few days in a row, and in that video I also talk more about why it's so healthy for the brain. You can see that video on the screen right here, so if this is something that is interesting to you, then why not check that one out as well. This is Scandinavian Bob signing out for today, and remember, as Winston Churchill used to say, if you're going through hell, keep going.